After his father passed away, Rudy Baylor found himself without a home and no clear direction. To survive, he worked as a bartender while trying to finish law school. But even after graduating, finding a proper job was tough. His boss eventually introduced him to a local attorney named Bruiser Stone, a man more known for shady deals than honest law. Bruiser offered Rudy a chance, but no salary. Rudy would only earn money if the cases they handled actually won in court. With nowhere else to turn, Rudy accepted. Bruiser gave him 2 cases. One was a lawsuit against a health insurance company, and the other was an old woman's will. Rudy also met Deck Shiflett, a talkative helper who claimed to be an expert on insurance law, even though he hadn't passed the bar. Deck gave Rudy an important tip: always get clients to sign paperwork early, before other lawyers take the case. Rudy cleaned up, put on a suit, and visited his first client, the Black family. Their son, Donnie Ray, was suffering from late-stage leukemia. Their insurance, great benefit, had denied their claim over and over, with excuses that didn't make sense. Donnie's mother showed Rudy the letters they got while Donnie slowly entered the room, pale, weak, and bleeding from the nose. Rudy knew this boy didn't just want justice. He needed it. Right then, the family signed the papers, trusting Rudy to fight for them. Next, Rudy met Miss Birdie, an older woman who wanted help writing her will. She asked Rudy to leave her money not to her family, but to a TV celebrity. Rudy tried to suggest otherwise, but she insisted. Before leaving, Rudy noticed a small apartment behind her house and asked if he could rent it. That's how Rudy finally found a place to sleep. The next day, Deck took Rudy to a hospital, not to visit, but to find more clients. Deck knew how to talk his way past nurses and guards, going from room to room, offering legal help to people in pain. Rudy was shocked. This wasn't what law school prepared him for. Deck laughed, saying this is how real lawyers survive. Not in books, but in hospital waiting rooms and hallways. From then on, Rudy was spending his days chasing clients in hospitals instead of working at a desk. One day, while studying for the bar exam, Rudy noticed a young woman in a cast with a man standing over her. The girl, Kelly Riker, looked bruised and scared. When the man began yelling at her, Rudy realized it was domestic abuse. Rudy told Deck, but Deck explained that Kelly had been hurt before and never pressed charges. He doubted she would ever ask for help, but Rudy couldn't forget her. Meanwhile, the will case with Miss Birdie got strange. She once had money from her late husband, but now there was barely $40,000 left, most of it lost through bad investments and taxes. The next day, Rudy finally found the courage to approach Kelly. He gently introduced himself and let her know she could call him for help. They talked softly, and Kelly started to feel safe talking to Rudy. He encouraged her to leave her abusive husband and press charges, but Kelly was afraid. She thought if she tried to leave or spoke up, her husband would kill her. Rudy understood and just listened. The following day, Rudy heard someone in his apartment. Thinking it was a break-in, he rushed in, but it turned out to be Miss Birdie's daughter-in-law and son, hoping to claim Birdie's money. They asked about the will, but Rudy kept things professional, saying he couldn't share details because of lawyer-client privilege. Then, he mentioned that Miss Birdie still had money left. This changed their attitude. Suddenly, the son treated his mother warmly and invited her to visit them in Florida. Despite distractions and pressure, Rudy kept studying for the bar exam, determined to become a real lawyer. Rudy treated his clients with care, taking Donnie Ray outside for fresh air and spending time with Miss Birdie as if they were family, not just clients. Then, good news finally arrived. Rudy passed the bar exam. He was now officially a lawyer and celebrated with Deck and their boss Bruiser, who surprised them with a $5,000 bonus and told them to handle court arguments themselves. Later, Deck brought a troubling newspaper article. Bruiser's former partner had been arrested. Deck thought this partner might expose Bruiser's illegal work, and that trouble wasn't far behind. And he was right. The next morning, the FBI showed up at the firm. Bruiser disappeared, leaving Rudy and Deck alone. Even though Deck still didn't have a law license, the two prepared to stand in court on their own. At court, Rudy stepped forward and told the judge he hadn't been officially sworn in yet. Before the judge could react, the company's lawyer, Leo Drummond, asked the judge to allow Rudy to proceed. Surprisingly, the judge agreed and let Rudy take the oath. Later, Leo introduced himself as one of the country's most expensive lawyers and offered Rudy a quick settlement of $75,000. But it wasn't just an offer, it was a warning. If Rudy refused, the case would turn into a war. Even the judge advised Rudy to accept, explaining that big insurance companies rarely lose in court. Rudy didn't answer right away. Instead, he brought the offer to the Black family. They told Rudy they wanted to fight until the end. That was all Rudy needed to hear. With the case serious now, Rudy and Deck rented a small apartment and set up their own law office. Rudy dove deep into research, doing everything he could to prepare. One night, Deck called Rudy with news. The judge assigned to their case had died from a heart attack. The replacement was Judge Tyrone Kipler, a fair man with a reputation for honesty and a Harvard background. For Leo, this was bad news, but for Rudy, it was a light at the end of a long tunnel. On the first day under Judge Kipler, Rudy asked for Donnie's testimony to be recorded from home because the boy was too sick to come to court. Leo objected, but this time the judge didn't back down. For the company's lawyer, this judge was a wall, but for Rudy he was a chance, maybe even the key to justice. The day of Donnie's testimony arrived. Judge Kipler, along with a team of sharp attorneys from great benefit, went to the Black family's modest home. Deck helped set up the room while Donnie's father, still haunted by war trauma, sat quietly nearby. Despite the pressure, Donnie gave his statement calmly, knowing it might be his last chance to speak. Days later, Rudy traveled by bus to Cleveland to question employees at the company's headquarters. Inside a sterile office, he faced a long table of defense lawyers who looked down on him like he was already defeated. When Rudy asked about the Black's insurance claim, the room turned cold. The clerks who handled the case were no longer employed, each one gone without a trace. But Rudy didn't give up. He took a chance and mentioned the company's vice president by name. By luck, that man still worked there, and Rudy seized the opportunity. "I'm gonna depose him, Mr. Lufkin over there." Rudy left Cleveland with just a thread, but sometimes even one thread can unravel a giant. Not long after, heartbreaking news arrived. Donnie passed away. Even though his mother had insurance and modern medicine was available, her son died without help. The sadness hung heavy, but for Rudy, it sparked something stronger. A quiet rage. He knew he had no experience and was up against seasoned lawyers, but he was ready to fight with all he had. That night, a call interrupted his thoughts. It was Kelly. Her voice trembled. She had been beaten again. Rudy rushed to her, took her to safety, and brought her to Miss Birdie's house, hoping she could rest a while. Now, Rudy was not only fighting for justice in court, but also trying to protect someone barely holding on. The next morning, when Rudy arrived at the office, Dex stopped him at the door and silently held up a letter. They had found a bug in their room. Someone was spying on them. Deck didn't trust the cops or the FBI and thought the spies already had a pretty good idea of what was going on. Thinking quickly, Deck played along. He pretended to call Rudy and said that the Black family wanted $175,000 to settle. The trap worked. The very next day, great benefits lawyer, Leo Drummond, suddenly offered a settlement right in that range. Now they knew Leo was behind the bug. Instead of reporting it, Rudy and Deck turned it into a game. They planned a trick with a jury list, creating the illusion of another bug call. Deck used a payphone to make the call while a stranger pretended to be a juror. They knew Leo would take the bait, and he did. On the first day of trial, Leo stormed into the courtroom accusing Rudy of illegally contacting a juror. But when the man on the stand heard enough, he snapped and punched Leo in front of everyone. The courtroom erupted into chaos, and Rudy and Deck shared a quiet laugh, knowing they had shaken Leo's confidence. Back at Miss Birdie's house, Kelly finally signed her divorce papers. She had hope now, hope that Rudy could guide her out of her pain and into something better. At trial, Rudy tried to show the jury how heartless the company really was. He presented cruel rejection letters sent to Mrs. Black. But when he questioned her, Leo objected, saying Rudy was leading the witness. Judge Kipler stepped in and gently guided Rudy on how to properly ask questions. It was clear Rudy was still learning, and the courtroom could be harsh. When it was Leo's turn, he aimed straight at Mrs. Black. He told the jury she already knew her son's cancer was terminal, that bone marrow treatment wouldn't help. His words were sharp and designed to paint her as a liar. But Mrs. Black didn't flinch. She looked at the jury and softly said she only wanted the best treatment for her boy, because that was what any mother would want. Rudy realized something in that moment. He was just a young man, still new and unsure, but he was trying to do what was right. That alone had to mean something. That night, Kelly returned home with Rudy to collect her things. But her husband was waiting. A fight broke out. Rudy did what he had to do. He picked up a bat and knocked the husband down. But Kelly, she'd had enough. She took the bat from Rudy, told him to leave, and finished the fight herself. Moments later, the police arrived, and Kelly was arrested for murder. Rudy watched helplessly, shaking in the car. In the end, the court ruled it was self-defense and Kelly walked free. During the trial, the vice president of Great Benefit was put on the stand. Rudy pressed him hard about the company's cruel replies to the Black family's claim. But the man brushed it off, saying he was under stress at the time, that it had been a difficult period. When Rudy asked about a key clerk who was suddenly fired just 2 days before trial, the vice president again shrugged it off, claiming he didn't remember. Despite Rudy's efforts, the truth felt like it was slipping through his fingers. Then Deck, as always, worked behind the scenes. After digging, he tracked down the fired clerk, a woman named Jackie Lemonchick. At the next day of trial, Jackie walked in and revealed everything. She said the company paid her $10,000 to stay quiet and confirmed Rudy's worst suspicion. Great Benefit trained its staff to reject every single claim, using a secret claims manual. Felt like a turning point, but the defense struck back fast. They tried to discredit Jackie, calling her an alcoholic, a single mother, and someone who once had a relationship with the vice president. Jackie didn't deny it. Instead, she calmly explained that within the company's culture, that was the only way to get ahead. Still, the judge ruled the claims manual couldn't be used as evidence because it had been stolen. Everything Rudy worked for felt like it was falling apart. That night, Deck reached out to Bruiser, who was hiding in the Caribbean. From their call, they learned about a past case where stolen evidence had been allowed in court. With that knowledge, Rudy and Deck took a risk. In the final trial, Rudy stepped up with new confidence. He cited that past case and submitted the manual as evidence. He called the company's CEO to the stand. Under oath, the CEO was forced to read aloud the part of the manual instructing employees to deny every claim, no matter how real or urgent. Rudy then showed the list, over 11,000 claims filed and more than 9,000 denied. He also presented company reports and internal records, exposing how deeply this cruelty ran. Would you please read from line 18? Since bone marrow transplants have become standard procedure, Great Benefit would be financially justified in investing in bone marrow clinics. Now it was time for closing arguments. Leo, sharp and polished, told the jury to protect companies like Great Benefit, to believe they were vital to the country, and to beware of people like Mrs. Black, whom he called a liar. When Rudy stood, he kept it simple. He played the final video of Donnie's testimony, the dying boy who only wanted a fair chance. If I had a bone marrow transplant, I would have had a 90% chance of living. While the video played, Mr. Black silently placed his son's photo in front of the CEO. Rudy looked at the jury and reminded them, if this company walks free, they could be the next ones denied help when they need it most. He told them to listen not just with their heads, but with their hearts. Soon after, the jury returned with their verdict. Great Benefit had to pay $50 million to the Black family. It was a huge win. Rudy and Deck were expected to receive over $15 million in attorney fees. But just as they celebrated, a fax arrived. Great Benefit had filed for bankruptcy. The CEO was caught trying to flee the country. The money was gone. Rudy told Mrs. Black the news. She listened quietly, then smiled. She didn't care about the money. For her, justice was never about dollars. They had taken down the company that let her son die, and that was enough. Though Rudy and Deck became famous overnight, Rudy made a personal choice. He stepped away from law. After all the noise, he just wanted a quieter life, one where he could give Kelly the peace she had been waiting for.